All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody from wherever you are joining us. We are really stoked for this one. Today, we are announcing Cybrary Free Access. And what is Cybrary Free Access? We have unlocked hundreds of hours of premium content here at Cybrary and launched a totally new and reimagined experience to help the community and specifically to help get new people into the industry. Cybrary, if you know Cybrary, we have always had some free content and free courses, and it's just part of our DNA. But we feel like now is just a great time to just accelerate and double down and really get after this problem of a skills gap. We have heard about the skills gap and been talking about the skills gap as an industry for a long time. As long as I can remember, it's always been a problem. And we are really going to get after that aggressively and try to solve that once and for all. And how do you solve that? Well, you got to get more people into the community and get them skilled. And so, um, look, there's a lot of jobs out there, and at this time, we know that there are different things going on in the economy. But one thing that we believe is that the cybersecurity industry is still strong, and while not immune, it's a great place to be. And there's still a lot of jobs, and there's still a lot of people who could benefit from those jobs and want those. However, there is something broken in that we can't seem to connect the supply and the demand in an efficient way. And there's some problems that we're targeting with what we're doing here. One of those being that we think there needs to be a de facto standard out there that is approachable for people of coming from everywhere, that is efficient and that doesn't have to take a year to go study and then get a certification and then ultimately be frustrated because you can't get a job after that. It needs to be much more efficient, call it a fast lane, if you will. It needs to have the right mix of hands-on skills and certification paths to it that makes sense. It needs to come from a trustworthy source, and it needs to be up to date, relevant, and timely. So, and then I guess lastly, we couldn't forget this one, which it needs to set real expectations with all of you, in that sometimes expectations get out there that just aren't true. Like, hey, we'll do come to a boot camp for a week and then you're going to get a six figure job. So this is not that. It needs to be right expectations. So this has been a totally reimagined experience that we have built in terms of the flow, the workflows, the pathing, and the hands-on skills, and all the content. And we're just super happy to unlock this and put this out there in the community, and hopefully get hundreds of thousands of people that are really interested in this and pursuing it in a way that has credibility to it, and has hopefully is very approachable and leads to some great outcomes for both individuals that are going through this, but also our community. And we definitely need the reinforcements out there. This has been a passion project for the whole company, and in particular, one individual, our head of content, Will Carlson. So Will is going to join me, and we're going to talk a little bit more detail about exactly what it is we've unlocked and what this experience that I'm talking about really means. And Will's story is just a great one to talk about here, because Will actually came to Cybrary initially as a learner and engaged in our free content, and that's what got him kind of down his path. And so he's got a lot to say about this subject, and it's been something that's been on his mind, and he's been wanting to bring to the community, I think, for years. So we're stoked. Will, where are you? You out there?
I'm here. I'm here, Kevin. Thanks so much for having me today. You hit the nail on the head. I came to Cybrary. Oh gosh, I was looking back in 2018. It doesn't seem like it's possible that it was that
That's
long
a long
ago. I've
time.
certainly not gotten that much older between now and then. um, but yeah, you're exactly right. So I was in service of small to mid-sized businesses, and helping them secure their workloads and make sure that everything operated and was up. I identified really early on that if I wasn't the one that was considering security as a core component of the solutions I was delivering, nobody was going to. So I set out to try to figure out how I could upskill and make sure that I was really prepared to do that work. And I found Cybrary. It's always a funny thing to me to now deal with folks like Kelly Handerhan on a regular basis. Like, she was the reason I was here, right? So I came looking for CISSP. I found Cybrary, a company that was offering that content for free, which seemed really impossible to me at the time. And I was so impressed by what I saw here. I pretty quickly converted and paid and upgraded and found myself in our mentor community. And, I tell everybody that that was kind of the beginning of the end for me, because I had one of our very own mentors who still serves with us today make sure I was being really efficient with my time, make sure I was on the right track, making good use of all of Cybrary's resources. And I knew at that point that I wanted to be part of that and do more of those things, and had the opportunity to have pretty much every contract role the company would allow me to have before coming on full time 2.5 years ago. And at an interesting point in our past, I think, when we were making some decisions to move some content behind the proverbial paywall. So you're absolutely right. This is a really exciting time for me to really double down on who we were and what brought me here, and kind of expand the aperture of who Cybrary is for and who we can get into the career field through our free offering. So super excited about what this means for Cybrary, but more than that, to the community at large that we serve.
Yeah, and here's to a much bigger one. A growing community. So let's talk a little bit, Will, about what I mentioned that we unlocked hundreds of hours of premium content, and it wasn't just like you went in and randomly sort of picked things. You and I have had a lot of discussions since I came to Cybrary. Um, with my background, where I was coming from, and my passion has been making sure people have the skills to do the job, not only get the job, but have the skills to do the job when they get there. And we've both struggled, I think, with the sort of the things, some of the things that are out there that where there are seemingly a lot of people that want to do this, and seemingly a lot of opportunities for people to do this, but for some reason or another, there's just something that kind of gets in the way or doesn't really lay that path well. And in some cases, it actually we sort of deject people. You can kind of hear it in their voice, or when you talk to them, it's just they feel like they've been pursuing it and done all the things that people have told them to do, and then they just for whatever reason it's just not working out. And so one of the things, as I know that you'll talk about, is we understand that, and that we're trying to fix that, right? We're trying to go at that problem hard, and not only kind of make it approachable, but make it where if you follow the sort of the recipe, it's sort of a trusted path, a de facto, if you will. So maybe talk a little bit about what we unlocked and why, and I think maybe also kind of the how we put that into an experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you've got a catalog as big and broad and deep as Cybrary's, getting the opportunity, from your CEO to say, "Hey, Will, let's go tackle some big problems for the cybersecurity industry. Let's talk about making some stuff free," is a really big ask, right? So, to your point, it's not just drawing straws and we'll make some content free. That wouldn't have been very useful. So, we were really thoughtful and spend some time as a team and a company figuring out what we really wanted to offer for free to solve problems in our space. And we landed on three kind of core areas that we wanted to make content free for people. And I'll start at the very beginning because it's a very good place to start. And that's with people that are trying to break into the field. So this beginner or foundational content. Because again, we want to expand the aperture. Cybrary believes that there is a capacity problem in our market. We just don't have enough people in the space to solve the problem. with the skills that they need or the capabilities that they need. And these foundation paths, the content we made free there is squarely positioned at that. So whether you have some IT experience or none at all, we've got a path for you that can get you all the way from I'm really interested in cybersecurity. I use a computer, but not much more than that. And if that's you and that's the case, then we've got some Windows foundational content, some Linux operating system content, some just core IT knowledge around networking. So the basics that you need to get into the field. You'll hear a number of, maybe our competitors out in the space that say, we've got 1,000 hours to help you accomplish this goal. And on one hand, I understand why they're talking about themselves that way. But on the other hand, having been a person in that seat, 1,000 hours of content is just insurmountable. Like, where do I even start? I'm never going to finish all of that. So we were really thoughtful about what do people really need to know to get started in cybersecurity, both for foundational IT concepts, but also that core cybersecurity knowledge that you need to have, the things that you're going to hear thousands and thousands of times in your cybersecurity career as a practitioner or in certification exams. And let's stop rehashing all of that and give people as efficient a path as possible to kind of grok that information and master it so they can move on to the things that they really want to do, which is solve cybersecurity problems. So we built two paths there. Again, we've got an IT foundations path and a cybersecurity foundations path. And the goal of those paths, again, is to get you as efficiently as possible, strong understanding of what you need to know to really begin a career in earnest in cybersecurity, whatever that career is, whether that's offensive, defensive, GRC. But again, give you those fundamentals so you're in a good place. Certifications is a second component of this. If you've been in the industry for very long, there are love-hate relationships with certifications, and that's fine. But the reality is they're still an important component in the space. You go from MSSPs or managed security services providers that want their entire teams to be certified to tell customers about it. You've got some hiring managers that require it or you don't get through the applicant tracking systems. And we could, Kevin, I'm sure you and I talk about that for a very long time and our opinions on that, but it's really irrelevant in the sense that certifications are here for the here and now, and Cybrary wants to support them because it helps support people getting into the space. So we've opened up every single certification course that we have, the course content, going back again to our roots a bit, to help people get in and utilize that content to begin preparing for certification exams. And then the last piece here is one that I know, Kevin, you and I are both really passionate about, and that's as an applicant who wants to get a job or as a practitioner who has a job, how do I stay current on things that are moving in the cybersecurity space to stay relevant and aware of what's happening? And that's this intermediate and advanced content. And we have, really good samples of some of our advanced content that are timely. So let's look at it this way, rolling back a little bit now, but when Log4j hit the ground running, unfortunately, how do we respond to events like that, get the knowledge that cybersecurity professionals and job applicants need as quickly as possible so that they can talk about those things intelligently, whether that's in an interview, whether that's going into work the next day and helping the team be prepared for some of those things. That timeliness and relevance is really important to us. We do that through a couple of ways. We have content that's aligned to CVEs or critical vulnerabilities. We have content aligned to the way threat actors move in your environment. In our threat actor campaigns, that's aligned to the MITRE attack framework, which probably many of you have heard of. And it was important to us to make some of that free as well, so people understand that we're offering that kind of content and can come along for the ride and see what that's really all about. And all in total, as everybody can see here, we were unlocking over 500 hours of content here to either help people get into the field, help people begin to get certified, and help people stay relevant with the timely things that are happening in the space.
Great. Well, we mentioned a few times, both you and I, sort of hands-on skills, and maybe talk a little bit about how, when the team went to put the paths together, the two paths that you mentioned, even though those are, one of them is, pretty basic. It's a beginner course for sort of people who don't have much IT experience. Even in that course, there's interwoven sort of labs and hands-on experiences right out of the gate. So maybe talk a little bit about that philosophy and why you all put it together that way.
Yeah, I know. It's a great question, Kevin. In my time as a mentor on our platform, there's this perpetual struggle, right? You mentioned some of this kind of dissonance in the market of, is it a talent gap, a skill gap? What do we call it? People are frustrated they can't get jobs, and I find so much of that goes back to the old adage of, I have to get a job to get experience, but I can't get experience unless I have a job. And it's
Yeah.
it's funny, not funny, right? It is really, really frustrating for a lot of people, and it exacerbates the problems that we face in as an industry on both sides, employers and potential employees. And there's some truth to that, right? Internships are great. There are a number of ways to try to get experience, but it's a challenge. But myself and the team and all of us here at Cybrary firmly believe that there are ways to speak really smartly about the jobs to be done and to get hands-on in a way that exemplifies you understand the work. But all of that means you have to get hands-on with the technology, right? So the course that you're talking about, that we're leading these two paths with, really dives into some of the core roles that you may encounter in cybersecurity. But it was really important to us to get people hands-on with those roles. It's one thing to watch a video where somebody talks about something at you. It's very different to get hands-on as a penetration tester using a real tool to crack a password. And sure, you may not know what all that Linux stuff is about and what all those flags and all the little parts of the command are, but to get in and really do a thing to see if it interests you at all with a real tool, that a penetration tester or a number of other roles might use, is important. And we couldn't do that without the lab piece of it. You don't really get a fundamental understanding about what you like and what you don't like until you can touch it. And that's the first step in investing more of yourself and more of your time in acquiring those skills. I mean, as you said at the top, Kevin, it's less about what you know and more about the skills that you can bring to bear solving an organization's security problems on day one. And that just requires you to get hands-on with those things. Some people would say labs aren't really experience, and I would argue all day long with them about that. It may not be, on your job, on your resume as a job that you had, but when you can step into an employer and tell them what you know about a technology and how it solves their cybersecurity problems, it puts you in a much better position than somebody that can't.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of dovetails with maybe the next question I have. You mentioned, and we both mentioned sort of efficiency, right? We hate it when we hear about somebody who maybe sort of chased the dead end, or maybe
Right.
got some advice about, maybe they're brand new and they get some advice about doing a CISSP or something, and they sort of pursued something maybe for much longer than they really needed to, and then ultimately it doesn't lead to where they want. So you thought pretty critically about the time, right? And it's always this balance of, I mean, clearly we would always want everybody that goes through the courses here to have as much knowledge as we possibly could give them and as much skill. But at the same time, we have to balance, just the time factor. So, um, how'd you think about time and what you were trying to achieve with these two paths? And how long do you think they should take for somebody? How long is it? How long could somebody, or how quick could somebody maybe get through it?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I think, I'll answer this way. As myself and the content team, we're partnering with our subject matter experts who collectively have hundreds of years of experience in this field. Sometimes it's easy for us to take the approach of, well, we want to make sure we cover everything. And that's, that causes course timelines and the time commitment required to really bloat. And like I mentioned, like 500 hours of content helping you get the IT foundations that you need to succeed in cybersecurity. That's not a benefit, I would argue. That's a real cost and a real downer. So my challenge to the team, and particularly the subject matter experts, because they really care about being thorough, was if we could offer the market an hour of content that helped them break into the field, wouldn't we rather do that? And I think they quickly all got it. They're like, yes, we would really much rather do that. And, unfortunately, I can't tell everybody watching that when, spend an hour of content and you'll have a cybersecurity career. It's not quite that simple. But when we were going to lean one way or the other, we worked really hard, Kevin, to figure out how efficiently can we do this so that we don't short what somebody needs to know, but we also don't belabor the point either. So, if you're coming in and you want to ultimately get through the IT foundations and the cybersecurity foundations paths, you're looking at around 30 plus hours of content, and it's really up to you as to how fast you go through it. I know there are people that will want to mow through it and they'll spend a week because they've got a week to go through it. That's definitely one approach. There are people that'll do it an hour a day. If I'm thinking about it from a outcomes perspective, maybe a little slower is better because you can really retain those things because cybersecurity builds on itself, right? You can't skip past the first things and then move on to the next things without causing yourself some struggles. But that's really up to learners and how they want to engage in the content. So, I think around 30 hours of content, most people could get through relatively quickly, even if you're only doing it a few hours at a time every week. And again, that hands-on component of it is really important. We're going to be doubling down on that. And what I'm hoping will happen for people, because this is a critical skill for people in cybersecurity, is curiosity and being self-guided. Adversaries are never going to tell you what it is they're doing in your environment. You have to have some curiosity and the willingness to go seek out the answers to the questions that you'll have. And so we know these paths are not fully comprehensive of everything you might ever encounter. But what they should do is give you a really firm foundation to spring forward from. And they should also give you a lot of ideas about areas where you want to pursue further. And we have many, many ways on the Cybrary platform that you can pursue those things further. But admittedly, if there's something that you learn here on Cybrary and you ultimately pursue that by looking up a blog post or following the cybersecurity news or whatever that is, I'm here for that. Because it helps us increase the capacity and the capability in the market. So efficiency was really key to us, and driving a sense of curiosity and empowering learners and people to answer their own questions in the space was also very important.
Yeah. I always find it funny because there's out on the sort of the public forums, there's always been a little bit of a debate about how many cyber jobs there really are. First of all, so let me ask you a softball. Do you think that there are open cyber jobs out there?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there are too. And I think there are people who could, who could go take them. Oftentimes they will come from places that you might not expect, right? Oftentimes they weren't even involved in technology. Some of the best cyber people I've met, started out as firemen or policemen, or all different types of occupations, and just sort of had a desire to change. And so I know this. I know that the numbers sometimes get thrown around as hundreds of thousands or 500,000 or whatever. I think you have to qualify that by is that a U.S. sort of centric number or a global number, because how those things those get around. But the way I say it is, it feels to me like even if there's let's say hundreds of thousands of opportunities out there, that's a lot. Right. And right now is a great time. And one of the reasons why we always had this is something we wanted to do at Cybrary and really accelerate. But, I think kind of looking at what was happening and just what's going on, we felt like now was a great time,
Mhm.
a fantastic time to really accelerate this and get it out where there seems to be people who are out there looking for jobs. And these jobs are, as I said, cyber's not immune, but these are jobs that people are still hiring for. In fact, there was someone just in our office before this webinar that was talking about an organization that's hiring. And so whether it's a couple 100,000 or 500,000 or more in the U.S., it's a big number. And I just remember being on the hiring side of that. Even if it was 20, it was more than we could figure out how to do. So, that I think this is a great opportunity still for people. And, how will Cybrary win in this? I'll take my shot, and I'd love you to take your shot. How will Cybrary win in this? One is, we win when the community wins. And, it doesn't really help anybody that there's such a tremendous skills gap right now. That doesn't help the organizations. It doesn't help individuals. It doesn't help the nation, et cetera. We want to see that get in a much better equilibrium. And when there are people out there finding this career and finding this industry as an approachable, real opportunity that they can get involved with and help, then I think that they'll want to go on and continue learning, beyond the paths that we're offering. Like you said, we have a deep platform. This is all we do, and all we sort of wake up every day thinking about and building. So we have a lot there that they can do beyond these. But we want to get them into that position where they're there, right? They're ready for that next step, and they're moving through to their levels of success that they're looking for. So I think that's what we get out of it, and we get hopefully a growing community. And maybe in a few years we can look back and say, hey, like, we really help with the skills gap, right? And now it's about what's next. And I don't think that by the way, I don't think the technology sort of process is going to slow down any. And every time there's advancements in technology, there's new things we have to worry about on the cyber side, and it creates new opportunities. So will we solve this problem once and for all? I don't know, but I think we want to we can make a big dent in it, and that's what we're going for. But I think my guess is you're going to talk about individuals, because one of the things we love at Cybrary is celebrating when individuals chase a goal and have success. But what is it that you think that Cybrary and your team will get from this?
Yeah, so I think, Kevin, to your point about all the different inroads for cybersecurity, I think back to some of the tried and true ones, like veterans moving into the space is really, really common. Law enforcement is really, really common. Physical security, really common. Technical roles, super common. But there are others, right? I think of a librarian that I had the pleasure of talking with on our podcast, who is now in cyber threat intelligence, and leveraged her, the way that library sciences caused her to think about catalog, store away, index information, and how she applies those things into the ways that she thinks about threat intelligence. Super interesting. There are a number of folks from a number of softer disciplines that get into roles like governance, risk, and compliance, leadership. There's just so many ways to get into cybersecurity. And circling that back to, how do we ultimately win? I think Cybrary really wins in a couple of different ways, but they're all through the same vehicle, right? And I tell the team, and I have the privilege of talking to people that interview with us to work here at Cybrary and on the content team, that Cybrary has a really amazing opportunity to impact our industry. One, through individuals, as you mentioned, and helping them upskill, get a new job, get a promotion, transition into the field from something else. And again, in my time as a mentor on our platform, there are so many success stories of people that were, a school teacher and unhappy with their job, that wanted to break into the field, that ultimately are able to do that because of their efforts and, some of the help that Cybrary was able to provide them. So we impact individuals on a regular basis. We also have the opportunity to impact organizations. Those that come to Cybrary as a solution, those that really value training and upskilling their people and investing in their cybersecurity professionals to help retain them, get a lot of benefit here from the platform. But interestingly, not just those business customers. Cybrary has helped thousands more businesses because we've helped train individuals that are now part of those businesses' cybersecurity teams. So our reach is well beyond that of our teams, Cybrary for Teams customers, and our individuals. But I think one of the most interesting ones to me, Kevin, is one that I think sometimes it's easy to forget. But, as a consumer, my information is out there in, let's be honest, probably way more places than I care to admit. And I try to be a little miserly about who gets my information. But man, it's really hard. Those free services, and I'm going to give it away probably more often than I want to. But what about all the people whose information has been made more secure or has avoided being breached because they had somebody that worked for them that came through Cybrary, that
Yeah.
got into cybersecurity because of what we did. So
Right
not
on.
only do we win when we help individuals, we do that. Not only do we win when we help organizations that are our customers, we do that. We also help organizations that are not our customers because people that came through Cybrary are
Yeah.
there.
That
And we
community.
help the global community at large because we've helped secure information of our own that is who knows where.
Yeah.
Um, so our ability to drive an impact is really, really huge here. And many people get the benefit. Like every new cybersecurity professional that Cybrary can help bring to the field, I believe has an exponential impact on the cybersecurity industry at large.
Yeah. Rock on. Um, yeah. I feel the same. And like I said, we love this stuff. We get up every day. That's all we do. Maybe we should take a few questions. You might be able to see them. I can see a few. One is, I'll call it the ones I can see, and if there are others that maybe I can't. First one is, will there be free access to labs? I think we may have answered that, but I don't know if you want to say anything more.
Yeah, so there absolutely will be some free access to labs. Again, we believe around here that just having some knowledge in your head doesn't really make you equipped to do work. And I think some factors at play in our industry have kind of played into that hand in a not really helpful way, if I'm being honest, Kevin, in that people know a lot, but can you do a lot? And as somebody that's hiring a cybersecurity professional, what we all have to admit is that, and Kevin, you know this probably better than anybody, bringing somebody into the organization whose job it is to help make it more secure, that doesn't know how to do the work but knows about the work, actually increases your risk as an organization, or can. So really important to us that you have some ability to do work, or as we say around here, be keyboard ready on day one. And labs are really a critical piece of that.
Yeah, agreed. And look, as I said, one of the things we love doing is building new labs, right? So, what you're going to see is us continue to put new things out there. Uh, if you want to not only get the job but be good at the job, you got to have recent and relevant experience and access to things. So, one of the cool things about working in this industry is that you never know what maybe you're going to be working on that day. It can change pretty drastically from what you thought in the morning to when you get to work and maybe something happened, right? And now the whole world's got to respond to something pretty quickly. So, uh, in a space like that, the Cybrary's role in that has to be recent and relevant, and we're committed to doing that and providing that timely.
Yeah, Kevin,
There's
that
another.
makes me think
Yeah,
of
sorry, go ahead.
circling back a little bit to, Log4j is really grained and burned into my head because I was here when that happened, and a number of our subject matter experts, like I'll be the first to tell the audience, our content development lifecycle, without any knowledge of our own, suddenly ground to a distinct halt because our cybersecurity subject matter experts were engaged responding to Log4j for 60 to 80 hours a week, some of them. And interestingly, what happened was very quickly a lot of what we probably would have said were cybersecurity adjacent roles were deputized, like network admin, cybersecurity job, sysadmin, cybersecurity job, and it was all hands on deck to begin responding to something like Log4j. And so I firmly believe, to your point about timeliness and relevance, like the more people that we can have that are aware of those timely things and ready to respond, the better it makes organizations. And I'm maybe optimistic enough to think that whether or not you carry a purely, quote, cybersecurity title, there is a lot of cybersecurity work to be done by a lot of people. And the more people that we can have prepared to do that with knowledge of those things, then we're just all better off for it. I think cybersecurity leaders may have never thought that they'd be asking the IT or networking team to dip into their work because division of duties and everything notwithstanding. But when your organization is up against a really present threat and attack, I think organizations will do what they need to do to maintain security. So
Yeah,
it's good for everybody to be prepared.
there's a question here: does the offer expire? I'll put my 2 cents on that, and maybe you can speak to it as well. So we haven't set an expiration date for this. Hopefully, we can do this for a long time. We do totally expect to change this and update this as there's new information and new things that people need to learn. I mean, as I sort of mentioned, Cybrary has been, we've always had a free offering. Um, we just felt like it was really time to just really, just really accelerate that and reimagine that based on a lot of things that we've learned over the past couple of years, to make sure that people are, getting the knowledge, the skills, and able to do the job and get the job. So we'll continue to do that, but we don't currently have any kind of expiration date. I don't know if Will, if you can add, yeah. So you shake it. And then there's another question here. It says, as someone who's been interviewing and applying for over a year with a master's degree in cybersecurity management, how will this help specifically? There is zero feedback from employers as well when asked. Well, frankly, it's kind of, I mean, first of all, sorry that that's the case. That's one of the things that Will and I hear, and one of the things we're trying to combat, which is, you shouldn't go get have to go get a master's and spend, however long that took and then interviewing for a year and nobody's giving you any feedback. That's BS, man. I don't know the specifics of it, but whoever put this in there, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Kevin Haynes, Hanes, or you can find Will Carlson on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to take a conversation with you and let's sort of troubleshoot that, and happy to sort of make introductions or try to troubleshoot maybe what's going on there. But sounds like you've done the work, and maybe something's, I don't know. It's hard to say, but that's crazy. I mean, at a minimum, you should be getting, some feedback. And I'm sorry that's happening. It's one of the things that we're trying to solve here, which is, it's amazing how many people we talk to, and a lot of times they're very wired around, hey, what should I do, this certification or that certification? And hey, I've heard this or I've heard that, and what do you think? And generally we would kind of roll that back because maybe the answer is none of them. Maybe the answer is let's kind of go down a path that's going to get you moving, and that could have a certification. I mean, may not, but we certainly don't want to send somebody down a path that's going to be a long path, without some things that are kind of get them to success sooner. Will, anything you want to say about that one?
Yeah, that's that story and others like it that I've heard. Mentoring in this space is a huge part of the reason, admittedly, that I think efficiency is so important, and having a trusted resource that's not, here to sell you a false dream or thousands of hours of content or any number of other things that they could. I talked to somebody just the other day, Kevin, that was looking at spending upwards of $20,000 for a cybersecurity certificate program at a 4-year university. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that those are bad programs, but as I talked with this individual more, it was really clear that there was a lot they didn't know about what they were getting into, and they were going to spend the time and the money to do that thing based solely on the reputation and their internal experience on, well, it's with a university, it's got to be the right way to go. And I mean, Kevin, at the end of the day, I think, as somebody that's hiring for cybersecurity talent, it very quickly, the degree matters a lot less than the skills and a person's ability to communicate the job that they're going to do for my organization than a certificate or a certification or a degree. Or those things are important. It's worth doing. But I do think we really need to be crafty and careful about how we go about doing that and how we advise people and what it really takes to break into the field again, because there's lots of different ways to get here. And it is horribly frustrating to have spent probably 6 years of effort and who knows how much money to get to that point to have no feedback at all.
Yeah.
We want to get out ahead of that.
Yeah,
Cybrary wants to
totally.
come alongside those folks. And, I love the stories where college students, and I can think of a number of them that I've talked with over the years, come to Cybrary to help fill in some additional things and context from what they're getting in their degree program. And their degree programs were still hugely useful and valuable to them, but so was something like Cybrary to help them really be pointed on the right problems to solve.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. And there's another question up here that says, do I have to have certifications? Shouldn't just taking your course be enough? And yeah, I think so. I can tell you from the hiring side of it, certifications are used a lot just in a LinkedIn sort of search. Um, trying to, when you get a recruiter and they're trying to, go fill a role, and they're trying to cast a net out there, and everybody sort of uses LinkedIn or other things like that, and it's just the criteria by which they can put in a search that people tend to think would yield people in the net, right? That to go talk to. Um, Hopefully we're moving, able to move a little bit beyond that to other things that matter, but it's still part of that initial search. So, but I can tell you also that sort of once you're sort of beyond that search, I'm not sure unless it's a specific role that has a specific certification need. As Will said, sometimes that is the case. There's certification required for a certain type of work or a certain industry or what have you. Um, but beyond that, I think once you sort of have the conversation with the hiring manager, it's they're, maybe they look over what you have in their asserts, but my guess is they're going to be asking you questions about, not about that, but about, what you've done, your experience, your skills, how you prepare yourself, how, really trying to get and understand, I think in a lot of cases, how growth minded you are, because this is an industry where you can't just like stop learn like, hey, okay, I got this job and now I'm like my learning thing is done. No, it's like it's just beginning. And once you learn more, you realize how much you don't know, and how much more there is to learn. So it's an incredibly, I think, high pace field from a learning perspective. So I think a lot of times hiring managers are just trying to understand how you think about that and what you've done to prepare. More just trying to understand you, in your work ethic and how you think about being growth minded. So, Will, anything that you want to say about? I mean, you advise a lot of people on this, and having a certification certainly won't hurt. But I don't know. Do you think our course is just enough?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. It depends on the organization. It depends on a bunch of market factors. As we mentioned, sometimes to get past the hiring manager or the recruiter, you need to have something. But I do find that with a lot of people that I've talked with, once you have something, whatever that certification is, and I know, Kevin, you and I have talked about this a lot. Having a laundry list of certifications probably doesn't, well, not probably, it doesn't put you in any better position than if you had one or two that were, or even one specifically aligned to the thing that it is that you want to do. It's a little bit of kind of
Yeah.
grease for the wheels, if you'll let me put it that way. It gets you past the applicant tracking systems. It gets you past some of the recruiters onto the interview that really matters. And then having a certification, stepping into an interview and getting asked a technical question like, tell me how DNS might be compromised in an attack. And if you totally pull up short and can't articulate an answer, but you have a certification, well, it's not the certification that didn't get you there. It's that your ability to articulate and express some of that may be part of the struggle. So there's just so much that goes into hiring. Certifications are important. They're not the only thing. And I would argue that real hands-on content and a community of peers to talk about some of these things to help you prepare is as important, or probably more important, to actually landing the job than the certification that gets you in the door.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. There's another one here. Can you talk more about how the free access offering specifically can help someone get job ready? Will, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take this one, right? So it depends a little bit about where you're at on your career trajectory. Um, so what I find is that with our mission here being to solve some of the capacity and capability issues in our space, wanting to cast a net really wide, I'd love to get more people that are not from cybersecurity into cybersecurity. So how does this help you be job ready? Well, if you're career transitioning, admittedly, there's a lot of ground to cover. There's quite a bit to know to really be a great cybersecurity professional. So this content is designed to help people get those things that they need to know so that they can really pursue that cybersecurity career. So I would stage it in this workflow, Kevin. I would say come in, do the beginners and the foundations content, make sure you have strong IT fundamentals like, operating systems, basic scripting, networking, pivot over into the the cybersecurity fundamentals so that you really know the core cybersecurity concepts, the proverbial favorite, the CIA triad. Do you know what that is? How it impacts organizations? Do you understand the roles and the jobs to be done? And once you have that, kind of the world is your oyster. So then I think it's a matter of what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Do you want to go into the offensive space? Do you want to go in the defensive space? Do you want to go into risk and management and pursue a C-level path? Lots of ways to get there, but that's a pretty common one. Once you have that foundational knowledge, I think learners can make a much more informed decision about where they want to go and can begin heading that direction. The next component, again, whether we love it or hate it, certifications certainly do help. So you've covered the foundations, you know that material, then you're in a really great position, I would argue, to get a certification. Let me say that a little bit differently. If somebody comes in not having a lot of IT experience and they want to do something like Security Plus, it's a pretty big hill to climb. There's a lot of prerequisite information that something like Security Plus assumes that you have. And if you don't, it's so much harder. Get the foundations, come in, pick a certification off the board that aligns with where you want to go and where you're headed. And then once you have that, then I think you really begin in earnest having really interesting interview conversations, right? But I think, Kevin, to our points, if you stop there, it's probably still going to be a pretty big struggle. But when you can couple that with something like how a Double Dragon, Chinese threat actor group, might try to compromise an organization, then the interview gets a lot more interesting. Even better when you can couple that with who am I interviewing with? What do I think concerns them as an organization? What threats do I think that they face on a regular basis? Oh, Cybrary has a financially motivated threat actor that this organization probably cares about. And now you can step into the interview having a firm understanding of the foundations, having a certification under your belt to get you there. And then you can talk about what you know and how adversaries might try to come at that organization and how you can detect and mitigate that risk for them. I think, and Kevin, I'll pass it back to you, having been in that hiring manager seat, like out of the hundreds of people that you would interview to source one role, how different would that dialogue be compared to the rest?
Yeah, it would be really good. I mean, that would stand out for sure. And then, don't ever forget or overlook the sort of the test of, is this somebody that, I think the team would like to work with, right? So there's just being someone that, brings something, accretive, or brings something, to the team that people want to be around. So if you have all those things you said, Will, and you're like, hey, this seems like a person we'd love to just be part of the team. I think you're going to really, really give yourself a huge plus, huge advantage. Because again, there are many organizations are really struggling to get, people to come help. Right. And they really want, they really want to hire. Right. And, I'll say, sort of my 2 cents on this is, I think most employers are willing to invest in training and onboarding as you come into their organization. They realize that you're not going to know everything. They realize that they're going to need to teach you some of the tools that they have, the workflows, sort of the procedures, about how they work, different things. They know that, and I think they take that on fully. I think where it sort of stops is if they perceive that the gap is too big of a gap for you to kind of get into that sort of onboarding and training that they have, then it sort of stops, right? Then it's like, okay, like it's not that they're not willing to train you or invest in you. I think they are. I think it's just like if it's just a perceived too big of a gap, then they can't move that forward. So I think my answer to this question is, how will it help them? I really hope it helps to fill that gap. So when you go have those conversations, those employers are like, okay, yeah, there's still more to do here, but I can put them into this next step of my training, my organization and my onboarding process, and sort of and get them there. And you mentioned sort of tuition and or sort of 4-year degrees and that kind of thing. I totally don't think you need a 4-year degree at all, whatsoever. And I think if anybody's telling you that, then maybe go talk to somebody else. And actually, I have nothing against it, but I don't think you have to have one, and it shouldn't discourage you. And one of the things I would go further to say is a lot of organizations actually have a tuition reimbursement program. So you can actually go get a job on the skills and the work that you can do, um, get a job, and then go pursue, right, a degree, a 4-year degree with tuition help from your employer. So I mean, that might even be a better way to do it, right? For a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people. There's a question here. Will my existing account grant me access to this free material? Well, I think the answer is a resounding yes, but I'll let you
Yeah,
answer that.
that's a really easy one to answer. Yes.
Yeah. Great. Do you help people land jobs after completing courses? Well, you want to take that, and I'll sort of add my 2 cents too.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to this. I know there are programs in the space that will say, come to our certificate program. We're going to guarantee you a job. And some of them are probably great. Some of them are less so. I've talked to a number of people that feel like, right or wrong, I didn't validate that they got burned by that, yeah, we'll get you a job, had lots of requirements and restraints. And the job that they got was well below market rate. And they were kind of forced to take it. And then the organization was done. They were finished. Um, Here at Cybrary, we like to work that really differently. I believe that when you have the certification that helps you get in the door, you're fully prepared for the interview. That I don't think you'll need a lot of help really getting that job, but admit that sometimes it's hard depending on the market that you're in and a number of things. So we absolutely, on the individual side, have a community of folks that refer each other, vouch for each other. They'll share job posts with each other. They'll you hear often that the internal job post before it goes public is sometimes the best way to get a job, and that's really all about networking. And I'll admit sometimes it's really hard to do when you're pursuing studies and trying to career transition, and life is busy. And so come join the Cybrary community and be a part of that group. And there's definitely resources here at Cybrary to help you
And
with that
mock
job.
interviews are good too, right? That's another thing. Like, don't wait until you do all this stuff to start, trying to interview, because you're not going to probably do great in your first ones. So get those out of the way. Like, just it's like everything else. You got to practice. You got to train. You got to learn sort of the rubric of interviews.
I always tell
And
people, Kevin, to when you have your list of jobs that you think like, "Ooh, that's the one I really want," don't interview there first.
yeah, right, yeah, yeah.
Take the
So
ones that
like,
you'd be okay maybe not having, and again, practice the interview because you'll probably notice some themes popping up with the questions that you get asking, and you'll
yeah.
get better and better at
And the
interviewing.
mentors in that mentor community are hiring managers, anyway, in their own sort of life, and they just have a passion of helping people. So, like, you're talking to somebody who's probably hiring people, and so probably it's going to be a pretty, I would say, good representation of what you might experience when you do go to that. But don't wait; you take advantage of that. Um, what role in cyber do you see the most need? I'll give you mine, and then we, there were always lots of roles and and it kind of, depending on, like I said, sometimes you don't know what you're going to be doing that day, or you think you're going to be doing A, and you get there and you realize, oh, did you see the news? Now we're doing B. And those kind of things can sometimes create, a little change in what resources you need. Like, maybe one day you really wish you had 5 more incident responders, when you wake up in the morning. But I'd say, just sort of as a general, I would say people to come in and help in the security operations center is what we saw, or what I've seen. And I think what we put out there in Cybrary, one of the things that we try to be really strong about, in terms of the training and the curriculum and the mentoring, is that, oftentimes is a first role. It's an entry role, but it's not. You can progress in that security operations center. It's not like there's only one job you can do. There's multiple levels you can progress. Oftentimes you can progress pretty quickly, because you learn so much. It's like dog years. every year's, like 7 years in the SOC. You learn so much every day because there's just a lot of volume, a lot of things you're going to see very quickly. And that can then sort of, one, sort of create opportunities for you to branch out and do things, other things, or specialize. But it can also just teach you about, what you like to do and what you don't. Because you'll, after a year of being in the SOC, you will definitely know the things that you like and the things that you don't, and you can navigate from there. But security operations centers, I don't. We keep deploying layers of technology, and companies, thank goodness they're doing it. Developing the next technology that's going to help. But at the same time, um, oftentimes the hardest things in the most ambiguous things go to people to deal with, and that happens usually in the security operations center, to make those calls and figure out what's going on, using the technology. And so, because of that, and because I haven't talked to any SOC leaders who say that their workload's going down, even with the advent of technology and greater things like AI and machine learning. It's all helping. Typically, it's helping to sort out the signal from the noise a little better, but there's still signal, and that typically, in a lot of cases, has to go to a human to make decisions. And so for all those reasons, I think that's a great place to go start, and one that we see in a need. And it also is one that there a lot of people would tell you that they want to do that role for a year, a couple of years, and then kind of move on, because it's a very demanding one. And like I said, you're going to learn, you're going to see a lot and do a lot in those 2 years, and you may be ready for something different. That also creates, because people move in and out of those roles pretty frequently, it creates a need to always have people coming in. Will, would you answer that any differently?
I don't think that I would, Kevin. I know that question always makes me feel probably two different ways. One, excited that somebody's really asking it, from an efficiency perspective, which you've already talked about. It also makes me a little apprehensive, just in that, as we talked about, the diversity of cybersecurity is so big. It's so hard to know what your background is and what skills you have. I've talked to so many people that, maybe cybersecurity is not right for me. I don't know if I have any experience. And when you start pulling on that thread and asking them what they've done, you find way more transferable skills than I think people really
That's a
realize. Like
great point.
things that are useful to cybersecurity and our approach of it. Like you mentioned, Kevin, a lot of interviews are like, how do you think? How do you decompose a problem? And there's so many transferable skills. Communication skills are really critical. Like I wouldn't sell yourself short on finding that one particular thing. I hear the heart of it, like, where do I start? What do I do? Help me be efficient. And I applaud that. But the other thing I would say is, get into something like Cybrary, get into a catalog like we have, where you can sample a number of things, talk to a bunch of people. Like I say this with mentors, don't have one mentor, have 10, have them
Yeah,
in various different roles. So you can really figure out what it is you want to do. Because I think, not to get too metaphysical about it. But doing what you really want and like to do that keeps you going is what you should do. Cybersecurity is a calling, I think, as much as anything else, because the effort and the grit and the continued learning that it requires. And I just firmly believe that you've really got to like what it is you're doing. So, maybe you
great
don't want to be
answer.
a SOC analyst, but it's a path to get you where you want to go. Then come in, pour into being a SOC analyst, know where it is you want to end up. But build a path for yourself to get where it is you really want to go. I think that's most important.
Got it. Okay, there's one more question. It sounds like we got to do it pretty quick, or maybe I lost it. No, I think we got it. Oh wait, no, we answered that one. That was the role in cyber we see most. Okay, all right. So I think we're going to wrap up. Um, Maybe just a quick recap of what we're doing here. Why we had this chat today. We have announced the new offering called Free Access. It's live today. Actually, if you go today, it is live. The teams worked really hard to put something out there that hopefully really helps the community. We frankly are sick and tired of hearing the stories about people being led astray, or kind of hitting roadblocks or walls. when they're just trying to get an opportunity, and there's plenty of opportunity out there. Cybrary feels like we have something, we have an asset that we can bring to the community to really help, and that's what we're doing. And so we've put together a free access offering. It's out. There's a couple of paths. One is if you don't know anything, really, you don't have any sort of experience in IT or anything, you can start there. And one is if you do have some IT experience, maybe you've been doing IT a year or 2 years, and you just really now want to put the top of put cybersecurity on the top of that and take off. So either of those are available now, and then the ability to help people pursue certifications if that's what they're looking to do. So all that's out there. We really hope that this helps the community. When we're looking at the forums and all the going to the different events in the community, we'd love to hear from you about how that's working, what you would love, you would love to see us put in that, especially if you're an employer out there. And there are certain things that you think that would be really beneficial to have as people are searching for jobs that we don't have in there. Like, let us know, because this is in service to that. So thank you all again. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening. And we'll see you next time.